I never thought a moment so small could unravel everything. It was a Tuesday morning, early enough that the light filtering through our kitchen blinds still carried that soft, gold-tinted warmth. I was on my way out, late again, juggling my thermos of coffee and a client folder, when Caroline's purse tipped from the counter. It wasn't the kind of fall that sends everything flying. It tilted, spilled just enough to scatter the essentials across the floor. Lip balm, keys, her sunglasses, a grocery receipt curled like a ribbon. I bent down to gather the mess, muttering something about how we were always rushing. That's when I saw it, the phone. Not her phone. Not the navy blue iPhone she always kept clipped inside her purse. This was smaller, older, matte black, tucked beneath her makeup bag like it had tried to hide from the fall. My hand froze mid-reach. I blinked, confused, then picked it up. It was off. No password prompt. Just a dead, unassuming screen. My first thought wasn't betrayal. It was confusion. Why would Caroline, my wife of 8 years, the most organized person I knew, carry a second phone? She'd never mentioned it. Never needed one for work. She was a teacher. Her job didn't require double devices. I held it there, kneeling on our kitchen tile, watching the light bounce off its surface, and felt something shift inside me. Not panic. Not yet. Just a quiet, cold tremor beneath the surface of everything I thought I knew. I slipped it into my coat pocket. It was still early. Caroline was upstairs brushing her hair. I could hear Sonia, our 7-year-old, bouncing around the bathroom, arguing with her brother over toothpaste. I stood, placed the rest of her items back into the purse, zipped it up like nothing had happened, and went about my morning like a man sleepwalking through familiar halls. The phone burned in my pocket the entire drive to work. That day, I didn't touch my coffee, didn't check my emails. I sat at my desk, a tidy cubicle in a glass-walled engineering firm downtown, and stared at the thing like it might explode. I didn't even know if it would turn on. I found a charger, plugged it in beneath my desk, and waited. The screen lit up slowly. Black background. No wallpaper. Just a battery icon and a basic Android interface. No password. That, more than anything, made my stomach twist. A phone like that, a secret phone, should have been locked tighter than a vault. But this wasn't meant to be kept safe. It was meant to be hidden. It buzzed once. A text preview slid across the screen. I miss your mouth. Last night wasn't long enough. No name. Just a number. My throat closed. I didn't open the thread right away. I couldn't. I sat back, hearing the office noise blur into a dull, meaningless hum. Phones ringing, someone laughing over by the printer, the hum of the HVAC overhead. My hands were trembling. I wasn't cold, but my skin had gone clammy, my fingertips pale. For 8 years, I believed Caroline and I were solid. Not spectacular, but solid. We met in college. A bad date turned into friendship, turned into something lasting. We married young, built our life slow and steady. 2 kids. Mortgage. Shared Spotify playlists. The works. She was my best friend. My partner. And now I sat here with a second phone in my hand, staring at a message meant for her from someone else. Eventually, I opened the thread. I needed to know. I needed the whole thing. The messages went back months. Maybe longer. The thread didn't begin with awkward hellos or fumbling flirtation. It began in full swing, mid-affair. Photos. Descriptions. The kinds of things no man should ever have to read about his wife. There were nicknames. Private jokes. Mentions of hotels. Mentions of days I remember vividly. Like the Wednesday last month I stayed late at the office working on a deadline. She'd texted me that night saying she was exhausted from grading papers. She was, in fact, exhausted for very different reasons. I didn't cry. Not then. I felt something worse, hollow. Like someone had scooped out my chest with an ice cream scoop and left me with just the shell. There were no names. Just the number. But I didn't need a name. The context was enough. She called him D. Always just that. D. Over and over. He called her Red, a name I'd never heard anyone use for her. Her hair was a deep chestnut, not red. But maybe it looked red to him under hotel lights. I couldn't read it all in one sitting. I wanted to throw the phone into the river. I wanted to scream into the carpet of my office floor. Instead, I sat there until 5, pretending to work, unable to tell anyone that the foundation of my life had just crumbled under the weight of a dead battery and a careless fall. That night, Caroline was in the kitchen when I got home, cooking stir-fry, humming something out of tune. Our daughter was coloring at the table. Our son was chasing the dog in the hallway, and everything looked painfully, insultingly normal. "Hey, babe," she called, glancing over her shoulder. "You're home right on time." I stared at her, at the way she flipped onions in the pan, the way she reached for the soy sauce like nothing was broken. I swallowed hard. My mouth felt like chalk. "You okay?" she asked, turning to face me. "You look like you've seen a ghost." I forced a smile, the kind that pulled at the corners but never reached my eyes. "Just a long day." We sat down for dinner. The kids talked about school. Caroline laughed at something silly our son said. She passed me the soy sauce. Her fingers brushed mine. I flinched. Later that night, when everyone was asleep, I sat in the garage in the dark, holding that phone in my hand, scrolling through the pieces of my ruined life. And then, I found it. A photo. Not of her. Of him. The mirror behind him gave it away. It was my house. Our bathroom. My toothbrush in the shot, barely visible, tucked behind his elbow. I dropped the phone. That's when I knew this wasn't just infidelity. He'd been here. In my home. In my space. With my wife. And suddenly, the betrayal wasn't abstract anymore. It was physical. Tangible. It had fingerprints and shoe prints and the stink of my shampoo on its skin. This wasn't just an affair. It was an invasion. And now, I needed a plan. I didn't sleep that night. I lay in bed beside her, listening to the shallow rhythm of her breath, trying to reconcile the warmth of her body beneath our blanket with the cold truth burning in my chest. Caroline looked peaceful, serene, even, like someone who had never known betrayal, like someone who hadn't delivered it in waves. My eyes kept darting toward the bathroom door. I imagined him there, brushing his teeth beside her, using my towel, standing where I stood every morning, in the same light that slipped through the frosted glass. I don't know how long I lay like that, motionless and wide-eyed, but eventually, I rose. Quiet as a ghost, I slipped out of bed and padded down the hallway to my office. The second phone was still in the drawer where I'd stashed it earlier, buried beneath some old tax documents. I pulled it out and scrolled, forcing myself to go deeper into the abyss. There were voicemails now, soft murmurs from him, always brief, always low. I didn't recognize the voice, which meant it wasn't someone obvious. Not a neighbor. Not one of the dads from our kids' school. Still, he sounded comfortable, like he belonged in her life. She never responded with her voice, just texts. But her tone said everything. "Last time was perfect. Couldn't stop thinking about you. Be careful when you park this time." It was meticulous, controlled. They knew the risks. They planned around them. Hotel rooms, quick meetups, a shared note in their phone hidden behind an innocent app. I nearly missed it. A shopping list disguised with grocery items that were actually code for time, place, and duration. God, how many lies had I swallowed? Every faculty meeting, every girls' night, every late grocery run that took an hour longer than it should, they weren't just red flags in hindsight. They were entire firestorms I'd blindly walked past. And the worst part? I would have kept walking. I used to believe trust was like a glass you placed gently on a table, something precious, something worth protecting. But now I realized it was more like a sheet of glass already cracked at the edges, just waiting for the right pressure to shatter. By morning, I had a plan. I'm not proud of what I did next, but then again, betrayal doesn't leave space for dignity. Only survival. Caroline left for work like any other day, a soft kiss on my cheek, a to-go mug of coffee, her scarf snug around her neck. She even laughed on the way out, something about the dog chasing her shoelace. I stood in the doorway and watched her drive off, that same red SUV turning down our street like it did every weekday. But this morning, I followed her. I took the back road, the one that wound past the park, past the old post office, keeping a car's length behind. My heart thudded the entire time, not with fear, but with the throb of something I hadn't felt since my early 20s. Cold, focused anger. She didn't go to the school. She drove past it. Instead, she turned into a narrow side street, an alley with a low-slung hotel at the end, the kind with a neon sign that flickered like a dying heartbeat. I didn't park. I just watched from across the intersection as she pulled into a back lot, stopped, and waited. 3 minutes later, another car pulled in beside her. Dark gray, sedan, tinted windows. She didn't get out right away. Neither did he. Then, like clockwork, both doors opened. He stepped out first. And in that moment, Every internal hypothesis solidified into cruel fact. I knew him. I didn't know his name, not yet, but I knew his face. I'd seen him at a few school fundraisers, chatting by the punch table. A tall man, lean, maybe a few years older than me. He wore those kind of shoes that said, "I have money, but I don't flaunt it." That soft smugness. A smirk tucked behind the beard. He kissed her. Not rushed. Not frantic. Like it was theirs to own. Then they walked toward the back entrance, slipping in through a side door like they'd done this dozens of times. I drove home in silence. I didn't scream. Didn't cry. My hands trembled, yes. But not from grief. From the pressure of holding in everything I wanted to do. Instead, I turned to my computer and built a file. Every message. Every photo. Every timestamp. I backed it all up. Then I went through our accounts. Quietly. Thoroughly. I was the one who handled our finances. Caroline had no idea how much access I really had. Every joint credit card, every auto payment, every scheduled transfer, all of it passed through me at some point. In the span of 4 hours, I had a snapshot of our entire financial life. And a new bank account in my name only. That evening, she came home with takeout and a bright smile. Thai food, my favorite. She kissed my cheek again and said, "Long day?" I nodded. "You have no idea." We ate dinner while the kids watched a cartoon in the other room. She talked about grading essays. I nodded at the right moments. I even laughed once, and it felt like betrayal to myself. That night, when she undressed beside me, I pretended to be tired. She kissed my shoulder, whispered that we needed to make time for just us this weekend. I said nothing. She had the nerve to ask for closeness after handing it away to someone else. The following morning, I had a conversation with a lawyer. No paperwork yet, just advice. She said something that stuck with me. "You're the one with the advantage now. Use it." I knew I couldn't confront her until everything was airtight. I wanted the satisfaction of watching the mask fall, of revealing that I knew everything, down to the color of the sheets in the motel room. So I waited. I needed one more thing. Something irrefutable. Something she couldn't worm out of. And then, like fate had been waiting for the perfect moment, it happened. The kids were at their grandparents'. Caroline was getting ready for a late lunch with coworkers, and I was pretending to fix the garage door when her purse tipped again, just like before. But this time, I didn't pretend to ignore it. I walked over, crouched down, and saw it. The second phone. Still in there. Still warm from her hand. Still real. I picked it up, stood, and walked into the house. "Hey, Caroline," I called out. She turned, halfway through applying her lipstick, and froze. The phone dangled from my fingers like an accusation. "You forgot something," I said quietly. Her face drained of color. And that's when I knew. She wasn't going to lie her way out of this. For a long second, the house was quiet. Caroline stood there like a statue in the hallway mirror, still holding her lipstick half drawn against her lower lip. I watched the color slide a little before she set it down, one careful motion at a time. The silence between us wasn't loud. It was surgical. The kind that cuts cleanly, without blood at first. Her eyes flicked from the phone in my hand to my face, searching, calculating. "I can explain," she finally said, too softly. Those 3 words. The same ones people always offer when the truth is a mountain they're too late to climb. She took a step forward. I didn't flinch. I didn't speak. The weight of the phone was like a stone in my palm, heavier now that it was no longer a secret. I could still feel the warmth from her fingers on its smooth back, as if the lie had a pulse of its own. "What is this?" I asked, barely above a whisper. Not angry, not sad, just hollow. Caroline exhaled sharply, her hand twitching at her side. "It's not what you think." I tilted my head slightly, like I was inspecting an object in a museum. "Then you'd better be very specific. Because this," I said, lifting the phone between us, "is exactly what I think it is." She opened her mouth, stopped, then folded her arms as though protecting herself. "It's complicated." "Complicated," I echoed. I turned and walked slowly to the kitchen, the phone still in my hand. She followed at a cautious distance. I set it down on the island between us. Like evidence. Like a bomb. "Then simplify it for me." She didn't speak immediately. Instead, she leaned back against the counter, arms still crossed, her eyes tracing patterns on the granite. "I didn't plan for it to happen," she said. I raised my eyebrows. It started at a conference. 2 years ago. 2 years. I don't know what I expected, but that number struck me in the chest like a blow. 2 years meant this wasn't a mistake. It wasn't a lapse. It was a parallel life. A whole second version of our marriage, hidden behind logins and side doors. My throat was dry. And you thought, I said, my voice tighter now, that sneaking around behind my back, in my home, was just inevitable? Caroline's face tightened. Don't talk to me like I'm a monster. I stepped forward, slow and steady. You brought him into our house. She looked down. You texted him while lying beside me. You smiled at our kids with his scent still on your skin. Stop. No. My voice cracked through the room. You don't get to ask for grace when you spent years rehearsing deceit. Tears filled her eyes, but I didn't care. Not then. You don't know what it was like, she whispered. I leaned on the island, looking at her like I didn't recognize the woman in front of me. Then enlightened me. She finally sat down, elbows on the counter, her hands pressed into her cheeks. It started when I felt invisible. After the kids. After you started pulling 18-hour workdays and calling it passion. You were always tired. Always distracted. I needed something for me. You needed someone, I corrected. Not something. She didn't deny it. It wasn't supposed to last, she added. But the longer it went on, the more I couldn't imagine ending it. And yet you imagined me never finding out. That silence returned, thick and buzzing. She looked up at me, eyes red now. I'm sorry, she said. I'm not interested in apologies. I left the room. I couldn't breathe in there. Every object was tainted. The counter where I packed the kids' lunches, the chair where she sat texting him, the walls that held our family photos and now knew the truth. Upstairs, I paced the bedroom. Every step back and forth was a litany of images. Her hand in his, her laugh in his ear, my children playing on the rug while she plotted her next excuse. The kids. That thought sliced through me with fresh urgency. Were they his? The DNA tests I'd mailed were still pending. I checked the lab site twice a day. 48 hours, they'd promised. Tomorrow, maybe. I returned downstairs to find her in the same spot, now staring at the second phone like it was a curse she couldn't touch. You're not leaving, I said. What? You heard me. You're not leaving. Not yet. Her face went pale. This doesn't end with you packing a bag and disappearing to some safe, clean ending. You don't get to escape the consequences, Caroline. I'm not running. Good, I said, my voice hardening. Because I need time. And so do you. She opened her mouth, maybe to protest, but she stopped. Something in my tone told her I wasn't asking. Over the next 3 days, we coexisted like shadows. The kids were home again. We smiled. We cooked. We played the part. But beneath the surface, we were both watching each other. Waiting. At night, we didn't speak. We didn't touch. And then the results came in. I opened the email in my office, alone. Subject line, Paternity Analysis Report, James and Sonia. My fingers hovered over the mouse for a long time before I clicked. James, 99. 9,998% probability of paternity. Sonia, 99. 9,982% probability of paternity. Both were mine. Both. I should have cried from relief. But I didn't. Because now I was filled with a new kind of anger. The kind you feel when you realize that even after betrayal, you still love what's left behind. I closed the report, sat back, and stared at the ceiling for a long time. Then I made a decision. It was time to speak to him. I went back to the messages on the second phone. There were more than enough clues, partial license plates, hints about his job, his favorite brand of whiskey, and a hotel reservation he'd once bragged about getting comped through his company. I worked backwards. And finally, I found him. Name, Derek Miles. Mid-level executive. Divorced. 2 kids. Lives 15 minutes away. I drove to his office building the next morning. Not a confrontation. Not yet. Just a recon mission. I parked across the street, watched him exit for lunch. He looked like he always had in the pictures she sent. Smug, polished, a silver watch glinting on his wrist. And then I saw something that froze my blood. He wasn't alone. He was holding the hand of another woman. Younger. Blonde. Laughing. And Caroline had no idea. He was cheating on her, too. Derek Miles, the man who'd unraveled my marriage with his messages, his hands, his presence in my home, was playing both sides of the same grim game. Watching him laugh with another woman outside that restaurant, her arm tucked into his like it belonged there, made something in my brain finally click into place. It was the first time since this all began that I felt something close to calm. Because now, I had leverage. I took a photo. Just one. Her face was angled perfectly, laughing up at him. His hand was mid-gesture, expressive, intimate. I watched them disappear into the restaurant before starting my car and driving away, but not home. No, not yet. There was a stop I needed to make. I returned to the office and locked my door. I opened a private folder on my laptop, the one containing the cloned messages, time-stamped photos, hotel receipts, and now this new picture. I reviewed everything with a cold detachment, organizing it like I was drafting a technical report. Methodical, precise, surgical. The next morning, I left early. Caroline was still asleep when I walked out. Her side of the bed barely rumpled. Her hair fanned across the pillow like none of this had ever happened. I paused at the door and studied her. I didn't feel love. I didn't feel hate. I felt distance, like I was watching someone sleep through the wreckage they helped create. She stirred, eyes fluttering open. "You're up early," she murmured. "Work trip. Be back late," I replied. She nodded and turned over, retreating into sleep like nothing was broken. It was a lie, the work trip. I had no intention of going to the office. Instead, I waited. At 9:32 a.m., Derek left his office building again, just as he had the day before. This time, he wasn't meeting anyone, just walking. On the phone, I followed from a block away. He stopped at a corner cafe, ordered a cappuccino, and sat on the patio facing the street. Perfect. I approached casually, not too fast, not too slow. Dressed in a suit, carrying nothing but a manila envelope. "Derek," I said, stopping beside his table. He looked up, puzzled, blinking at me through the steam of his coffee. "Do I know you?" "No," I said, setting the envelope on the table. "But you know my wife." He froze, his hand still on the cup. A flicker of recognition, maybe my face from photos Caroline shared, passed through his eyes. I didn't give him time to respond. "That envelope contains everything. Every message, every photo. The second phone. You'll want to review it carefully." He opened his mouth, closed it. I continued. "She has no idea you're seeing someone else. I thought that might interest her. It certainly interests me." He leaned back, exhaling. "Look, man." "No," I cut him off. "I'm not here for apologies. I'm here to give you a chance." He squinted. "A chance for what?" I smiled. "To make this disappear. Quietly." His brows furrowed, suspicion creeping in. "What's your angle?" I leaned forward. "You break it off with her. Permanently. No explanation. No goodbye. You ghost her. Block her number. Walk away. If you do, that envelope stays sealed. And if I don't," I shrugged, "then I deliver everything to your employer. To hers. To both of your children's schools. The hotel footage I pulled, the photos, the texts. You'll be remembered for a very long time, Derek." He paled. "And the girl you're seeing now? I'll make sure she gets a copy too." "You wouldn't," he said, but there was no heat behind the words. Just fear. I stood. "Try me." I walked away. That night, Caroline was oddly quiet. She barely touched her dinner. The kids chatted as usual, unaware of the storm circling the walls. I waited. I knew what was coming. She cornered me in the laundry room after bedtime. "Something's wrong." I turned from the washer. "Why do you say that?" "I don't know. He's gone." I said nothing. She rubbed her arms, as if the house had suddenly turned cold. "His numbers blocked me. His email. Everything. It's like he vanished." I looked her straight in the eyes. "Maybe he did." She blinked. "Did you?" "No idea what you're talking about." Her mouth opened, but she stopped herself. There was something new in her face, a kind of fear I hadn't seen before. Not of me, of reality, of the scaffolding collapsing. Later that night, she stood outside our bedroom door for a long time, silent. I watched her shadow beneath the frame. She never opened it, just stood, then walked away. The next morning, I beat her to the punch. I dropped the kids off and returned home before she left for work. "Sit down," I said, standing in the living room as she moved toward the door. "I'm late. You won't be going in today." Caroline paused, clutching her bag like a shield. "What are you talking about?" I walked over to the bookshelf and pulled out a document folder, sleek, black, and heavy with pages. I handed it to her. She opened it. Inside, a draft divorce petition. Asset maps. Full custody request. Evidence packet A. She looked up, her face breaking in slow motion. "You're divorcing me." "I'm informing you," I said. "Consider this your 48-hour courtesy." Her lip trembled. "You said we'd wait." "You said." I said I needed time. I've had it. She sat down hard on the arm of the couch. What about the kids? They stay with me. You get weekends, holidays. Pending the court's decision. You can't. I can. I will. Her eyes filled. What happened to you? I stared at her. You did. She reached for my arm, but I stepped back. Don't. Her hand hovered in midair before falling to her lap. You can't just erase me, she whispered. I'm not. I'm leaving you behind. That's different. She didn't cry. She didn't scream. She just sat there, stunned, as if someone had hit her with a car she never saw coming. And then the final nail. I have a meeting tomorrow. With your school board. She looked up sharply. Why? To share some materials. Your judgment's in question. I think they should see what kind of behavior you model for their students. You wouldn't, she breathed. I met her gaze. I already have the appointment. She covered her face with both hands. Why are you doing this? I leaned in close. Because you built your second life on lies. And now I'm burning it to the ground. I left her there. Sitting in the same house she once turned into a stage. Alone in the spotlight. That evening, the kids were at my parents' for the night, pre-planned, long before the confrontation. I knew Caroline would leave. I just didn't know when. But I didn't expect what happened next. At 9:43 p.m., my doorbell rang. When I opened it, I froze. It wasn't Caroline. It was the woman from the cafe, Derek's girlfriend. She held up the envelope I had left on her porch. Her expression was unreadable. I think we need to talk. She stood in the doorway, envelope in hand, rain misting down behind her like a fog in slow motion. Derek's girlfriend, or whatever she was to him, didn't look how I imagined. Not angry, not wild-eyed, just composed, contained. Her coat was too thin for the chill, and her blonde hair clung to her cheeks like ribbons. I read it all, she said. I stepped aside. She walked in, deliberate and silent, like someone crossing a frozen lake. We sat across from each other in the living room, a coffee table between us. The envelope rested on her lap. Was it always this bad? She asked. I shook my head. It used to be good, quietly good, but I think it had been dying long before I noticed. She nodded like she understood. I thought Derek loved me, she said, almost to herself. I thought I was his second chance. I didn't respond. We both knew that illusion too well. Her name was Eliza. She was a landscape architect, had met Derek at a fundraiser, and fallen for his charm the way people fall for fireflies. Quick, dazzled, unaware of the burn. Why did you send it to me? She asked. Because you deserve to know. She stared at me, and something shifted in her expression. You didn't just want revenge. No, I said. Not just. We talked for an hour. Quietly. As if speaking too loud might crack the moment open. When she finally left, she said, I'll handle him. In my own way. I nodded. I didn't ask what that meant. The next day, I followed through. At 10 a.m., I sat across from the school board, the folder on the table between us. Caroline's texts. Her weekend hotel receipts. A carefully redacted timeline that made no direct mention of the affair. Only the ethical implications, the overlap of school events and meetings with her private excursions, the use of sick leave for personal gain. They were polite, stern, concerned. At 3:14 p.m., she called me. I was asked to take a leave, she said, voice shaking. Pending an internal review. I said nothing. You went through with it. I warned you. She started to cry. It wasn't performative. It was real. But it didn't move me. I have nothing left, she whispered. You had everything, I replied. And you gave it away. That night, I packed her bags. Not in anger, in finality. I placed them by the door and left a typed note. Please remove your things by Sunday. Keys left behind. This chapter is closed. She came quietly. No fights. No drama. I stayed away that weekend. Let her vanish in silence the way her loyalty had. By Monday, the house was mine. For weeks after, the kids asked questions. I told them Mommy and Daddy had decided to live in different houses. I didn't mention the rest, not yet. That story would come with time, when they could understand. When they could ask and not break. I became their constant. Their calm. The one who still read to them at night. Who still made pancakes on Sundays. Who didn't leave or lie. In those early mornings, I sat by the window with coffee and watched the sun spill across the floorboards. The same ones I'd once knelt on when her purse tipped and the truth came spilling out. It felt like a lifetime ago. I kept the second phone for a while. Not to reopen wounds. Just to remember. But one evening, I stood in the backyard, struck a match, and burned it, piece by piece. Plastic and betrayal curling in the flames. She reached out again a few weeks later. A long message. Half apology, half nostalgia. She missed the kids. She missed us. She was trying therapy. She understood everything now. I didn't reply. She had her answers. So did I. A few months passed. Then something unexpected happened. One afternoon, I found a letter on my desk at work. A small envelope. No name. No return address. Inside, a card. Simple. Blank. Except for 2 words. Thank you. Folded inside was a photo. Derek. Sitting alone in a restaurant. Slumped. Unshaven. A shadow of himself. A handwritten caption on the back. Some fires never burn clean. I smiled. A slow, private thing. In the end, it wasn't about destruction. It wasn't about winning. It was about reclaiming what had been stolen. Truth, dignity, peace. And now? Now, the silence in my house no longer feels haunted. It feels earned. The laughter of my children still echoes down the hallway. I still work late. I still make coffee too strong. But there's something else now, a stillness inside me. I survived betrayal. And I didn't just survive it. I rewrote its ending.